All right. Welcome, everyone. Casey Barker here, CEO over at Empowering Conversations and New Perspectives. Welcome to our podcast. We have a wonderful new guest who will be joining us again sometime soon as well. This is Christine Chisenhall, and she's a Reiki practitioner at Spirited Sage. Did I say that right?
Yes.
All right. She is a native here in Louisville, just like myself, and we are going to bring you definitely an empowering conversation today. I'm so excited. It says me and Christine have talked a lot already in the background, and we just align so much on everything. So we are probably going to get really passionate today. So bear with us and make sure that if you have any questions or comments, that you definitely leave them in the comment section so that we can touch base with you after this. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Christine. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a Reiki practitioner and self-care coach, and I've been doing this since 2017, more or less. And so even though I've been doing it so long, I feel like I'm still learning so much, which is
Oh, yeah.
awesome. And it's just so much fun. Like more than anything else, it's just fun. So I'm excited to be here, excited to get to know you, and excited to see what comes up.
Yes. So, one thing that I can already bring up for the both of us is who we are and what we have as gifts to offer are always with us. So, I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but right, like being a Reiki practitioner, something called us to do that, you know? And me as a massage therapist originally is like something called me to do that. And really is who I am. I've always been that nurturing, loving person my entire life. And that hasn't always been easy. So, when we're put in the situations like our topic today of being uncomfortable or in that discomfort of really highlighting who we are and how to have that power to come home to ourselves and to stay true to ourselves is definitely, not always an easy task to keep moving forward towards. So, can you tell us a little bit about your story on how you came to be a Reiki practitioner?
Sure. So my story, like you, I've always been this person,
Right.
but it wasn't until I say my story started at divorce.
Okay.
So I was married when I was 24 and divorced when I was 24.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So uh, that just unlocked, you want to talk about discomfort, like coming to
Right.
the conclusion was uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
so being in that container of pressure and then coming out of it and saying, okay, great. Now, what am I going to do with my life? Because it's not what I thought it was going to be at all.
Right.
And so, about 5 years after that divorce, maybe like three or four, three, I can do the math on that real quick.
Yeah.
I was invited to go on a road trip for the eclipse that was in 2017.
Mhm.
And it was going to be in totality. So we were going to be in the dark. The dark is uncomfortable for me. I don't care
Yeah.
if it's broad daylight. Like sitting still in the dark is awful for me. And so, but it sounded fun. And I happened to have the day off work, which was very unusual. So I was all about it, gung ho. And it was in that time of totality that something shifted that I felt. Could not put my finger on it until later that that's what it was. But that's when I felt the divine connection of Reiki within me.
Yeah.
And so from there, a month later, I was on family vacation and I was like the only kid on vacation. And it was midnight, our first night there, and I felt called to the ocean. And we were walking distance from the ocean. So I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll get my things and I'll walk out to the ocean.
Yeah.
Everything's fun and cute. And I sat there, and you want to talk about dark. It was pitch fucking black. Could
Yeah.
not see anything in front of me. I could just hear the waves and hope I didn't get too close and like end up in the ocean at night. And so I sat there for as long as I could, which
Mhm.
coincidentally I did not keep time. It ended up being I'm sitting in totality on the water. Both of these things happened with water. Both of them were about the same time. Both of them were in the dark. And so that's really, I think, what brought me fully into Reiki. And then later I got my attunement through a certified master. And with that, I also love writing. So I do these journaling workshops. And at the time, I had just been doing these gatherings with some girlfriends where we get together and do like creative writing things
Yeah.
together, prompts. But putting them all together, Reiki and writing, and at the time I was doing tarot readings, which I'm not anymore, but it was part of it, the beginning.
Yeah.
And so doing all of those things together really was uncomfortable. And especially if you've never had Reiki and you've never connected with writing, being the recipient of that service is really uncomfortable because you're stepping into the unknown. You're expected to be in stillness. You're expected to do things you don't like to do for whatever reason. And we all have them. And so the nature of what I do is being in discomfort and facilitating that for people, facilitating their discomfort. And I think it's amazing and beautiful, kind of fucking hilarious, honestly.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's how I came to be doing what I'm doing. Is it's truly rooted in discomfort and moving through it.
Definitely. So for me, I mean, kind of the same kind of story is I became a massage therapist so that I could help people and they're in pain and they're in a dark place and they're looking for resolutions. And when it boiled down to it, skip ahead about 10 years, if not more, but it boiled down to it, it's like memory lives in every cell of our body. And when we learn and appreciate in any way of that divine energy too, is that is can be harvested within us. That can be we can use it to with us. We don't have to fight it so much. We don't have to put all of these expectations on it. We can allow it to show us things. And the greatest things that I've been shown is just like you is like once I got to that dark place, once I, could appreciate how to get out of it and what it was there to make me learn something. You know what I mean? So it's like so I'm talking so vaguely. So for one thing is, I mean, I've had trauma in my past, had a lot of trauma in my past. And once I get to the point where you can sit in that stillness, in that darkness and reflect through what's happened, this is what I do with my clients through like guided meditations is we sit there and we determine, okay, so this happened and what can I gain from it? What did I know that I needed in that moment that I can now, essentially download and have with me at any given moment now, right? So getting those resources and those tools and those understandings about ourselves just only comes from allowing us to get to discomfort first. To get past it is where that light lives, right? And yeah, I mean it's very, very beautiful and very powerful. And I feel like a lot of us don't allow that intention to become one of our desires so that we can get there. We stay away from discomfort because that's what we've been told means is bad, right? Like fear is bad, discomfort is bad. And that's where everything good lives, though. You got to get through it to get on the other side.
Yeah, yeah, it's that juicy part of getting through the discomfort is that's where all of the good stuff is, you know? Doesn't mean it's hard and it doesn't mean that it can't be heartbreaking, but it's heartbreaking open.
Mm-hmm.
It's your self breaking open. And that's so important. So important. You don't know yourself till you've gone through something like that.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's it. That's what I tried to help people understand is like, you only know in any given moment, you only know who you are based on how you've experienced things. And most of us only experience things as children, right? And like things are being told to us, and usually things are being shown to us in the other person's perspective, but not really intentional of like, how do you feel? What do you need? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who
Yeah.
are you? Like, why are you important here? Like, what do you have to offer? And so, I mean, I like to help my clients come to having acknowledgement of their gifts, and having people like us who have stepped into that is why I created this podcast, and kind of why I do what I do, is just to give that light that it exists, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first started on this journey, it was rooted, the verbiage for me, it was rooted in truth.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing and seeing and speaking your truth,
Mm-hmm.
which is uncomfortable.
Definitely.
And so now that I'm so many years out from where I started, I recognize how important the discomfort is and how important showing other people through discomfort is.
Definitely. Definitely. So, what is it, or if you can recall, one of the greatest things about a Reiki session with one of your clients? You know, what is something that you've helped someone move past through?
So I have one client who I see once a month for an hour, and she is my most consistent client. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's power in the consistency of Reiki, and her specific need for Reiki was for anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until a few months ago, after seeing her for about a year or a few months more, I was in her house doing like a house call session. And during Reiki, if you're not familiar, uh you'll get, and some people will get intuitive downloads. And
Mm-hmm.
so that can happen through color, visualization, feeling. I've experienced all of those things um with clients. And so hers in this particular session was a visualization of, it's 111 right now, of the only way I can explain it is a monkey goblin.
Okay. Yeah.
A monkey goblin coming up through the root and the sacral chakras, and like leaving her body.
Okay.
And that is one of the most powerful things I've experienced with Reiki. And I've experienced a lot of powerful things, but that actual, not tangible, but very visceral energy
Mm-hmm.
of anxiety that was just running through her all the time,
Mm-hmm.
getting up and leaving, and knowing that it took so long. It took so many sessions for me to get through to that layer, to those depths, for that to be achieved.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, to get to truth, we have to trust that it's there.
Yeah, trust that it's there, and trust that the process of getting there is worth it, and working.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, like, for me and some of my clients, is what I do is, through these very specialized guided meditations, is we allow the subconscious mind to open up, and we trust and we love whatever's coming up is what lives in their reality. Like, your subconscious mind has taken on all of these programmings, right? Of like the people we're around, the things that we watch, the things that we listen to. And when we come to our life, we think that we're in control because we're consciously making a decision, right? But until we really sit down and reflect of, like, when we react or we choose to get to responding instead of reacting, we're still only doing that through those things of our past. So, like, getting to the light part of things for us is, like, for my clients that have, been with me for a year doing these techniques, and too, is like myself, is there's a lot of us out there that have already filtered all of that stuff out. And, like, it's rare because it's not talked about, right? Like, it's not appreciated enough, but it happens. You can walk through life in all positives, and that's extremely triggering for people. I have seen people, like, find me so intimidating, and I'm just like, I'm like the least intimidating person I know. Like, I mean, well, but they're just not used to seeing someone have so much to give without expecting anything in return.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a rare quality in our society, unfortunately. And it is off-putting because it's a trauma response for people.
Oh yeah.
They've been taken advantage of in their life. They're only used to feeling taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably don't have much self-worth, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, somebody who has self-worth is not trying to take advantage of them and is
Mm-hmm.
only trying to be a positive presence, if nothing else, in their day, in their moment, in their life. Like, yeah, that can be very jarring for someone who's not used to that.
Right, right. When it's like one thing that we talk about too in my stuff is, I mean, ultimately we are choosing and we are manipulating, right? Like I'm manipulating because I'm giving the opportunity to reframe things. And people don't like to be manipulated. But what they don't realize is you have a choice to manipulate yourself towards those desires, right? Like you
Mhm.
can have a choice to only accept what is your self-worth. I mean, it's really as simple as that. Yet, how much work has to happen before it can get to you understanding them understanding, right? Like
Yeah.
that is it. Like it's a threshold. I try to explain to people it's a threshold. And at any given moment, you can just decide to walk over it. You can just decide to step over it. Happiness is a choice, and
Hmm.
everything of worth is a choice.
Yeah.
But we have to get rid of the judgments and the trauma that's attached to keeping you from taking that step forward over that threshold.
Yeah. Yeah. And the trauma that we do to ourselves. It's
Oh
not,
yeah.
I mean, obviously it starts somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
but how many times do we beat up on ourselves?
Oh yeah.
You know, I am my own worst critic.
Yeah.
And so when we make that choice to not do that to ourselves anymore, that's one less person in line to punch us in the eye.
Mm-hmm. And the most common, the most frequent one, like yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And when we make the decision to not do that, we oftentimes stop other people from doing it as well.
Right, right. Let's say it's like when we download our own worth and we determine the boundaries that protect that, right? And
Hmm.
that comes out in our conversations, and then you start to realize, like us, is like it's a possibility, and all it took was for you to speak out from that internal dialogue of, I can do this, I got this, this is easy.
Yeah,
It doesn't have, it's hard because we make it hard. It's easy if
exactly.
you make it easy.
Exactly. It's only a problem if you make it a problem.
Right,
That's
right.
that's my saying. There's a I'm not sure if you've ever watched it, but there's a part in Walking Dead where one of the characters who uses a staff essentially to defend
Mhm.
himself um, comes across some people in the woods that are trying to hurt him. And so he says to them, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to kill you." And he's like, "No, you're not." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that you're going to do that to me. So you're not. And so if we just go about that attitude and like if we develop that attitude in life where we step over that threshold of discomfort and say, "No, I'm not going to let you do that to me," your whole world changes. And that is a lot of boundary work and a lot of like not worrying about, did I hurt that person's feelings by
Right.
setting that boundary?
That's what I tried to help people realize too, is like, hey, guess what? The only person you're stuck with for the rest of your life is you.
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's start making decisions for you, which like we talked about, like how do we get out of our ego? But for me, that's not ego, right? Like ego gets such a bad rap on what it is and why it exists. And it's like your spirit is part of your ego, but allowing your ego to get out of control instead of your spirit is totally different for me.
Yeah, yeah, and balancing that
Yeah,
and knowing and having that awareness. It's really all about
yeah,
awareness, you know. Why am I doing this? What am I doing? Just being curious with yourself and leading with curiosity as you develop your own spiritual self and cultivate the people around you,
hmm,
because intention of what am I trying to say here? Who you surround yourself with is so important. It's just a
definitely,
reflection of your own self and your own vibration.
definitely, definitely. So like for me, I would say ego is like So I always tell people, like, you need to listen to yourself first, right? But it's still going to go back to that. What is that voice telling you, essentially? And if it's, really harvested in light and like being true to you, who you are and like what you have to offer as a gift and spiritually, that's going to be different than only benefiting yourself. Because we're doing things through light. I mean, everything that we will say and do only benefits everyone else too. When we choose to stay within our ego, we're choosing to make it all about us and not about contributing something in a positive way.
Right, exactly. And so just asking yourself every day, how can I serve today? How
Right.
can I show up and serve my community? How can I serve my family? How can I serve my friends? How can I serve myself
Yeah.
in a way that is healthy?
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, what are some cycles that you've had to break through yourself?
I'll tell you what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, definitely.
So I am trying to make a leap from where I am now to where I want to be. And in order to do that, I've been told for more than a year now by spirit, you got to give up weed, girl.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one because I just enjoy it. Okay. It's
Yeah.
just a good time for me. But it takes up more time than I'm willing to give.
Mm-hmm.
It is not, I mean, it gives me things. The
Right.
spirit of that that being gives me things. It's not something that's taking from me. However, it's not giving more than it's taking in time
Mm-hmm.
and energy. The
Yeah.
thought of going and that of going and doing that sacred practice is not it's not conducive to where I want to be. So yeah, just breaking through that, and then also how I use it to buffer,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like I'm feeling uncomfortable for whatever
Yeah.
reason in my thoughts and my feelings, and so I just am going to take a break and not think about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I'm at right now, breaking that cycle of not not buffering,
Right.
not investing time into something that is not a dividend of
Mm-hmm.
investment. And so that's my big cycle right now. But other cycles include that I've broken through in the past. Um, Making my bed,
Yeah.
not just walking away from it in the morning, like actually committing to myself to
Mm-hmm.
make that start every day. And it might not be as soon as honestly, it's not as soon as
Right.
I get out of bed. It's like get the kids off to school, and then I'll come back down and I'll have my morning where I'll make my bed, get dressed, do whatever I need to do. But just committing to breaking the cycle of leaving it and then sleeping in an unmade bed, which honestly, I like sleeping in a made bed. It just feels
Right.
nice, right? And so
Right.
treating
Well,
myself
I think
that,
that's like a good self-care thing, right? Like you're making yourself worthy enough to have something nice and
yes,
not just allow it to be what it is. Like allowing things has a time and a place. We don't always have to allow whatever's happening in front of us to happen. We can choose to do something different.
exactly. And that's a beautiful way to say it. Not allowing a mess to occur just because it started off as a mess.
Right.
You know, um, I I'm very vigilant about my car being clean.
Mm-hmm.
My boyfriend is not. So I'm working with him on breaking that, like wanting to break that cycle for him.
Right.
You are worthy of having a car to drive around in and having and showing your kids that they're worthy of having a clean car to drive around in. And so that's a big thing for me is just you know, being worthy of a nice clean environment.
Well, I mean, when we display our worthiness like that through our belongings, we're also displaying the gratitude, right? The respect of it, and then that's just what keeps multiplying. Like what we put out is what we get back in abundance.
And that struck such a beautiful chord with me just now, the way you said that. Like I'm
Mhm.
gonna start doing a gratitude practice while I make my bed. I've never
Right.
thought about that before, and I'm gonna start that. And I appreciate that, Casey.
You're very welcome. I would say one of my cycles I continue to work on is committing to myself. So
Yeah.
because I'm naturally this empath, is the cycle that I have to keep balanced is making sure, and that's one of the things that I preach about so much, because I preach to it's that internal dialogue coming out to people too, is like I'm worthy too, like I matter too, like I'm equally a part of this presence as anyone else. So being an empath and or just a feeler type person is we always want to keep giving, and we don't really set the boundary and the commitment to ourselves of like, is that really worthy of my energy? You know, like, can I just show up this much and be okay with it?
Yes. Yeah, and when you show up this much versus this much, you're actually giving so much more because you're hyper focused,
Right.
giving it seems like you're giving less, but you're actually giving more because
Right.
you've got that boundary of your energy which amplifies itself.
Definitely. Definitely. I would say another cycle that I'm breaking is, what would be another one? I would say I've broken free and I'm continuing to break free of the drama cycle, because it's still going to contribute to that. I'm committed to myself more than I'm committed to other people, which can be triggering for people, right? And
Yes.
for me, it's like, I'm not going to rescue you. I'm not going to be the victim, and I'm not going to be the perpetrator either. So how do you live life without falling into one of those three categories? By just being neutral, by just existing.
Yes. That's such a good question and such a good thing to think about. I think for so many people, and that resonates with me. I'm a stepmom with two bio moms, and so that can get really victimy,
Yeah,
perpetratory quickly. And so
yeah,
I'm trying so hard. So that yeah, that's a cycle I'm breaking into as well. Is
yeah,
like breaking into neutrality. I'm the third party here, really, when it
yeah,
comes down to it. Yes, I take care of these kids, but also, um, there are things that I just don't need. That's not my business. I just need to
right.
keep to myself sometimes.
Right, right. Oh, and you've seen some of my communication stuff too, so we can pull that stuff in here too. But it's like, like, when is the moment to sit in silence, and when is the moment that that silence is actually giving back?
Yeah,
And like, when
yeah,
is the moment to speak up? And when you speak up, even if you're speaking up for yourself, how can we still do that in that neutrality? Like, how can we just speak up by educating like this, by showing example without necessarily putting a judgment or a guilt or a shame on it?
right. Yeah, totally. And
Yeah,
understanding those things too, when you understand what shame and guilt are, then it's a lot easier to be neutral.
definitely. And the craziest thing that we've had to learn in our family is that guilt and shame and judgment aren't necessarily what we're saying, but how we say it. So it's that tone,
Mhm.
right? It's your body language. It's the presence that you show up as. Like, you can say the same thing, but it's how you say it is what gives it the positive or the negative behind it.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh no, gosh, it's so fluid, man. We just already covered like all of our stuff. So, okay. So what would you say a new beginning look like for you?
So I would say a new beginning looks like we're back to the truth. We're back to being honest with ourselves about what we want, who we want to be, how we want to be, where we want to be, and then committing to that.
Mhm.
Just fully showing up and making the next best decision for ourselves. So when we are clear on those things, we're able to make decisions from our higher self.
Yeah.
We're able to make the choices that suit our goals and our dreams and our desires versus, yeah, that sounds good. Let's just go do that. Or
Hmm.
or my favorite, I don't whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
That
People
doesn't sound
pleasing.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. One of I love Matthew McConaughey like so much, like so much. And I posted one of his inspirational speeches one time, and it was always chase your hero. And that hero is you 10 years from now. That hero is your higher self. Like, that's what it, like listening to yourself is like, if you know the goal and where you want to be, you need to be listening to that so that everything you do is always a step forward towards that.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
Exactly.
I would say my new beginnings will tend to look like a choice. One of those things that I talk about a lot too is because we can fall into these cycles, and especially being in a drama cycle is eventually when your triggers start coming around or you're in this drama cycle, what can happen for me at least, and what I've seen with clients is that we typically get to the end of the cycle, like, shit, I did it again, and then the more practice and the more that you trust yourself that you can get in and out of it is faster and faster, and you're becoming more self-aware. You eventually, it's like right before the end you stop yourself, and then it's in the middle you stop yourself, and then it's like right when it happened you start yourself, and then eventually the self-awareness becomes so prominent that you can see it getting ready to happen, and then that's that new beginning then of like, nope, not for me, I'm good, I'm gonna go this way.
Yes, yes, yes. And one of those things I feel like we can all relate to is going and poking around in the pantry when we know we're not actually hungry.
Oh yeah.
Breaking that cycle of weighting down our emotions
Mm-hmm.
with a connection to food. When
Mm-hmm.
really we might need a connection to another person. We might need a connection to ourselves. We might need to just cry and feel that. There's so many other things. And so we might be thirsty and we might just need some water. So many times we go to eat when we really just need water. And so being so aware of those uh, different triggers that can get us into that cycle, make us step into that cycle, and the awareness can stop it.
Yeah.
And we can say, okay, no, we can check ourselves. No, let me get some water first. Let me try that. Let me go take a walk, see if that helps. And so I think that's another part of what new beginnings look like for me is the awareness, developing your awareness so that you can make better choices, just like you said. So I agree
But
with that.
honestly, you're just tuned into me because that's literally, so the past year I've lost 40 pounds and it's only been through intention, just like that.
Wow.
So for me, I mean, I've done a lot of the same work that I do with my clients internally and with other coaches too. However, what it came down to was essentially labeled as intermittent fasting. However, for me, it was a trauma response. Eating was a trauma response. So as a massage therapist and as someone who overgave so much, I would overeat because I needed the energy in my body to keep giving. And
Mm-hmm.
so then it became a comfort thing, right? So then, like for me, it was grilled cheese. So one of the things that I do is I can turn a like and a dislike of a food, and that was life changing for me. So I used to make grilled cheeses right before bed every night because it was my comfort food. So much carbs and butter and dairy. And so like once I cut that out, that was that beginning. That was the new beginning of like, hey, I thought I needed this and I don't.
Good
Right.
job.
And then from there, same thing. It's like from that download came, am I really eating because I need something? Am I really eating because I'm hungry? And then that started that journey of, again, intermittent fasting of I just decided that I became aware that I didn't even know what hunger felt like anymore for me. Like I literally did not know what hunger felt like. And so, like you said, it's like I would always ensure I had the right nutrition. However, I would sit with it. Like if I was being triggered to eat, I would sit with it, just like you're saying, and like I would drink my water. I would go for a walk. I would say, okay, am I really hungry right now? Like, do I have enough energy to keep going? And then I call it a BIA, business impact analysis. So that setting those boundaries is, what do I need right now? And if I do that, how is it going to affect me right now? Like, am I going to get anything in return, or am I still just giving away? And for like my kids, like that's what I love about generational curse stuff, is because for me and my kids is that's the first thing out of that experience. That was the first thing we started implementing with our kids is if there's something that comes up, the first thing that we started really pushing, and I do intentionally say pushing, is what do you need right now?
Yeah.
Without giving them an answer. You know what I mean? Like, just tell me what you need right now.
Yeah. What are you feeling? Where are we at? Yeah. And it's so important. And I think our generation of parents, me, you, like the millennial generation, is doing such a better job about that intentional parenting around feelings collectively, where I didn't get
No.
it. I mean, I got it some, but it definitely was a lot of the, it's okay, you're fine, it's okay, just brush it off. And I still hear my mom do that with
Yeah.
our kids. And it's just like, okay, they're not okay. Clearly, they might be scared. They might be hurt. Like, let's talk to them. Give them a minute to calm down, but like walk them through that and let them express their feelings so that they can learn emotional intelligence and so that they can learn what feelings feel like and that it's okay to feel them and it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's okay to push and like, push and work through that.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. And that's where that discomfort comes from. It's like we get to, just like we talked about, going into the darkness and coming out on the other side, is like we get to choose what makes the label discomfort, like uncomfortable, discomfort. We get to choose what that is. And we didn't get a chance to choose any of those things. Like that's the thing that I think is coming up is we're allowing new things to be born that have always been there, right? I mean, they're not new things. We're just finally allowing them to have an opportunity to exist without judgment.
Yes. Yeah. It's like one of those things where within our humanity, it's so deeply rooted, but because of society being the way that society has been for however long, everything gets piled on top of it. And finally, the vibration of the thing of our feelings and our humanity has risen up through the crap and is finally allowed to be seen and heard and felt. And we're not taking it anymore. Darn it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, I hear so many people, including clients, that say, I just want peace. And for me, it's like peace is a state. Peace is a state as a result of you making other choices and decisions to get there, to be able to appreciate it. Like peace is a place where we can go and visit that like you get because you've done other things. Like peace can't come to you truly and intentionally until you have cleared it out to allow it to be there. Like you have to be able to appreciate it. You can want it as much as you want, right? But you have to be able to appreciate it in order for you to really have it.
Yeah. And to know it, does a tree make a noise if no one's around to hear it? Sure it does, but it's not the same. There's no one around to hear it. There's no one there to receive the peace if you're not aware that it is peace.
Yeah.
When I first got divorced, one of the phenomenal things that would happen to me that really awoke my spirit was witnessing the sun come through the trees.
Yeah.
It's it moves me to tears.
Yeah.
And it's such a miraculous observation when you really get it, that you just it's hard to describe unless you understand it. But it's that awareness of universal peace. When I was living in the city, driving through traffic on Southern Parkway, and so if you're not from Louisville, it's a 4-lane road from one end of a part of town to the other, and it's very busy. And so there's highway interchanges and everything. And so just being able to look up at a stop sign on a sunny day and see the glory of all that is come down and feel the vibration, literally feel it with every part of you, is just beyond anything that is human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I never knew it before.
Right.
Because
Well, I mean, there's so many distractions in life, right? And what some people don't understand is like when we determine our worthiness and the desire, and we start to understand intention and gratitude and vibrations and things like that, is like I talked about earlier this morning, is like time does slow down. Like things work in your favor. Like you get into a flow, and everyone's flow is different, right?
yeah.
Like that's why we have to learn how to listen to ourselves. Is like my flow is like I take the morning, I go for a walk, I listen to some sound, some singing bowls. Like I have to take a morning, and when I take a morning, 15 minutes can be equivalent to an hour if I didn't take the morning, right? So it's like choosing your time wisely through intention is what allows us to have an abundance of time. It's like taking a nap. You take a 20-minute nap, you've just multiplied your day in two because you're refreshed, you know?
Yeah. And having that foundation wherever it is in your day is so important because it's grounding to your spirit.
Yeah.
If you're an anxious person and you're not doing some sort of grounding exercise practice for yourself, you're kind of just inviting more anxiety.
Right.
And so having that time of a morning walk or a bath or reading or whatever it is, yoga, painting, drawing, writing, it could be literally anything. You are creating a foundation for so much magic to happen.
Definitely.
Within your day.
And for a lot of people don't understand, I'm a science nerd so much, but we get addicted to our stress and anxiety. Like that's what you know,
Yes,
right? That's what you know, so that's what you're addicted to. And so if you're not being triggered by drama and stress and anxiety, you don't even know how to exist anymore.
Right. Yes.
Those are those cycles that we have to break.
Yeah. Yes. And I read something one time, on Facebook internet meme thing where it was like there are people who don't want to resolve their trauma because that's their whole identity.
Exactly.
Who would they be without that trauma?
Right.
Which is kind of insane to think about.
I know. I know. Definitely. Okay. So, what does Spirited Sage have coming up?
Let's see. I always have Reiki available via a virtual setting, or I do once a month visits in Louisville on the weekends. And I am working on, talk about discomfort, I'm working on my first YouTube video.
Awesome.
So, I filmed last week. I went to edit it and I'm feeling I might need to film it over again.
Yeah.
But we will see. So my goal was for Thursday. I got my second COVID shot on Monday. So I was out all day yesterday. So it might be early next week when it's out, but I am actively working on a YouTube platform.
Yes, good. One thing that I realized in my journey is who I am today and how I show up in my videos and my content wasn't even the same a month ago, 6 months ago, or a year ago. But I wouldn't be who I am today until I started. So as long as you're started and you've committed to it, I'm sure everything will be great. Yeah. So that feeling of needing to like re-record and stuff like that is, I mean, trust it, right? However, don't let that judgment determine what you do.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, that came to me this morning where I was like, oh, maybe I'll just refilm the whole thing. And then I thought, no, I'm not like, so I'm going back and forth with it. I'm going to keep editing the stuff that I have to work through it, but it's a little tricky for me because it's a journaling offer on YouTube. So I just want to make sure that what I'm offering is clear. I want people
definitely
to take away from it. So Yeah, that's my big scary
Nice.
uncomfortable thing right now.
Nice. Nice.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, discomfort is a human condition. We all experience it. We are built to experience it. We are built to withstand and work through it. Uh, Through that discomfort, you'll find new connections. You'll find new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of feeling, and to invite those in and have fun. Like, more than anything else, find the fun in it and work through it so that you can say that you did it
Yeah,
and be stronger and find the magic on the other side, because I guarantee you there's magic on the other side.
definitely. I completely agree with all that. It's one thing that I try to teach people is failure doesn't exist. The only thing that happened was an experience.
Yeah.
So what did you gain from the experience, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, it was a very much a pleasure, and I know you'll be back because, again, so fluid. And yes, so you will see Miss Christine back here soon, and we look forward to hosting and supporting all of her events and her Reiki practicing. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you, Casey. Have a good
Yeah.
day. I'll see you.